Hello everyone and welcome to KSA Infrastructure webinar. My name is Mohammad Farooq, Senior Trade Advisor, DIT, covering infrastructure sector, and I am based at the British Embassy in Riyadh. Before we get started, I would like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. You have joined the presentation listening using your computer's speaker system by default. If you would prefer to join over the telephone, just select telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. You will have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenters by typing your question into the questions pane of the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We will collect this and address them during the Q&A sessions at the end of today's presentation. I would now like to introduce today's presenters, starting with DIT colleagues. Today's webinar is joined by my colleague Darren Johnson, Regional Infrastructure Specialist based at the British Embassy in Dubai. My colleagues Umar Saeed and Yamish Yaqub, Senior Trade Advisor, both based at the British Consulate General in Jeddah. We have Yazan Shukair, Senior Consultant from our local partner and our commercial partner, Arabian Enterprise Incubator, AEI Saudi. And finally, our special guest of today on this webinar from Aecom, Rick Hopper, Director Buildings and Places, Saudi Arabia. I will take the lead and start with providing information on DIT team covering infrastructure sector in KSA. My colleague Kabir Rahman, Deputy Consul General and Head of Infrastructure Saudi Arabia, Umar Saeed, Yamish Yaqub and Syed Sawan, they all are based at the British Consulate General in Jeddah, and I'm based at the British Embassy in Riyadh, covering the infrastructure sector in Saudi Arabia. Darren Johnson, our Regional Infrastructure Specialist, he is based at the British Embassy in Dubai and provides support to the UK companies in the MEEP region, that is Middle East, Afghanistan and Pakistan. Now I invite my colleague Darren Johnson to introduce himself and say a few words on the Meet the Buyer event at the Big 5 exhibition in Dubai. Darren, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. As mentioned, my name is Darren Johnson. I'm a regional infrastructure specialist based in the British Embassy in Dubai, but I cover the MEAP region. My role is primarily to support British companies and also our overseas DIT offices to uncover and develop new project opportunities, as well as building relationships and help to succeed and help British companies to win project opportunities. Now, as part of my regional role, I'd like to mention about a Meet the Buyer event during Big 5. This is a half-day event which will basically be divided into two separate parts. First of all, the first part will be a welcoming speech by Her Majesty's Trade Commissioner, and then there will be a panel discussion from UK Export and Finance, where also a case study of a successful company that has used UKEF as well will also be featured. The second half of the program will be one-to-one meetings between DIT representatives. We're planning to bring 6 different DIT colleagues from the various MEAP offices to the event who will be able to provide insights into project opportunities. Those who are interested to participate in this event, I would actually ask you to contact my colleague, Rashid Kawaja, and I believe on the slide his email address is featured. In closing, I just mentioned that I look forward to hearing from the various British companies and helping you as you develop business opportunities in MEAP. Thank you.
Moving on, just I want to provide brief information on DIT KSA team support for the UK companies in the market. We facilitate appropriate introduction with both public and private sector organizations, in-market advice and support, organize outward and inward trade missions, and provide exposure to the decision-making bodies. My colleague Umar Saeed, in coordination with the sector team and Saudi-British Joint Business Council (SBJBC), organized successful trade mission of 18 UK companies to Riyadh and Jeddah on the technology and smart cities trade missions last week. We also identify business opportunities and publish it through DIT website under the export opportunities. Now I am provide brief overview on the KSA infrastructure sector. KSA infrastructure sector is one of the important sectors under the Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030, with huge investment committed over 1.5 trillion USD of major projects planned or underway, namely NEOM, Red Sea, Qiddiya, Amala, Diriyah Gate, Riyadh City 4 mega projects, and others. All the public sector infrastructure projects previously in practice were fully government funded, but now under Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 and associated vision realization programs, the government is very keen to attract more private participation in its infrastructure, including through public and private partnership. I will just very quickly go through the Riyadh 4 mega projects. The Royal Commission for Riyadh City, formerly known as Riyadh Development Authority, launched 4 projects for Riyadh City: King Salman Park, Sports Boulevard, Green Riyadh, and Riyadh Art. The total investment committed for this project is around $23 billion. All these projects are in initial phases of planning, feasibility studies, and designing. Moving on, very briefly on King Salman Park. This park will be world's largest park when completed in the middle of Riyadh City. This project will include real estate development projects, culture and sporting facilities. Commercial components include residential compounds, hotels, retail space, and office space. The other component of the project includes Royal Art Complex, theaters, museums, cinemas, sport venues, water features, restaurants, 18-hole Royal Golf Course, and educational cultural center for children. The Sports Boulevard will split into a series of zones connected by tracks of running, cycling, and horse riding. They will include art centers, museums, studios, libraries, conference halls, and a sport tower with indoor sports facilities. The Green Riyadh project is an afforestation project that involves planting trees to raise total green spaces in the capital. More than 7.5 million trees will be planted throughout the city of Riyadh under this project. And finally, the Riyadh Art involves art installation in public area, such as children's playground and public transportation hubs across the capital, transforming Riyadh into an open exhibition hosting the works of 1,000 local and international artists. If you need more information on this project, please do feel free to get in touch with me, and I will provide you more information on the decision-making people in the Royal Commission for Riyadh City. This concludes my presentation. Now I invite my colleague Umar Saeed to present on KSA's Giga Projects. Umar, over to you.
Thank you, Farooq. It's Omar Said from the British Consulate General in Jeddah. I would like to give a brief on the Giga Projects, which we last week actually we visited the Giga Projects. So the information which we have is very recent because we had a trade delegation which Farooq mentioned earlier, technology and smart cities trade delegation of 19 UK companies actually, and we visited these Giga Projects. So there is a lot of movement, and the project cycle has started. So the first one which I would like to talk about is the NEOM project. NEOM is a huge project which was announced by the Crown Prince a few years ago. The master plan was approved very, very recently, and the basic construction has started. The idea is within Vision 2030, one of the pillars of Vision 2030 is to increase tourism entertainment projects in the country in order to increase the number of visitors who come to the country, and also to keep the number of Saudis who leave the country during the summer holidays to go abroad. So NEOM is the largest project of the Giga project. It's a huge investment which by 2030 will have a total investment of about $500 billion US. It's very close to the Egyptian border and Jordanian border. It's in Saudi Arabia, obviously, very close to the Red Sea, and the total area which NEOM will cover will be about 26,500 kilometers squared. There's been significant progress ever since the beginning of this year, and it's a project which was announced 3 years ago, but nothing, a lot happened in those 3 years. But starting from this year, it actually started to pick up with an airport at Sharma now operational, and plans for expansion to begin of this airport to begin later this year. NEOM-based master plan has just been approved and will be the first urban area to be developed within the Giga Project's boundaries. The board of NEOM has also given instructions to start construction works at the project from the beginning of 2020. There is also a joint stock private company which has been established, and shares have started to be sold for income to be generated for this project to go ahead. The second project which I wanted to talk about is the Red Sea development. Next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. Now, original plans were that the government had actually planned for between 50 and 60 islands to be developed on the Red Sea. Last week, we were told that the concentration now is on 21 islands, and this stretches between the cities of Umluj and Al-Waj, and you can see the total area will be huge, slightly less than NEOM, obviously. And the idea is to build a number of hotels, luxury residences, housing units, obviously an airport, which has just the designs for the airport has just the RFP for that has just gone out, and a number of companies have expressed interest. We also have a few UK companies interested in running the airport. There will be obviously a yacht marina, utility infrastructure works. We understand the overall project will cost about $10 billion US by 2030, but this is one of the very live and upcoming projects, as I said earlier, we saw last week. Next slide, please. Qiddiya project is another project very, very, in fact, close to Riyadh, in fact, within the vicinity of Riyadh city. We called on them, and the notion there is to have the same, again, a recreation facility, amusement parks, car rides. Phase 1 will feature Six Flags as a huge family attraction, and the plan is to have it completed by 2023. They are again moving very fast on that project, and we saw the managers of Qiddiya last week. Next slide, please. Those are some of the PIF-owned projects. PIF is the Public Investment Fund. There are other Giga projects around the country, but we thought in consideration of the time just to give you slight information on those three. In our patch over here in the western region of the country, there are two large projects which are coming up, driven obviously by the Vision 2030 plans, which are to increase the number of pilgrims to Saudi Arabia from 10 million a year to 30 million by the year 2030. So obviously there will be a lot of infrastructure works needed in the two holy sites of Mecca and Medina. One such project is the Qura development project, which has started, and they've started just recently with phase one. Plans obviously are to build 7- and 5-star hotels, accommodation, and supporting facilities. It's a huge investment which by 2030 will attract about $13 billion US investment. The next project next to it in Mecca is the Jabal Omar development project, which currently is at phase 4. They have plans obviously to build a number of 5-star and 7-star hotels at that project. A few UK companies are involved in the initial stages of the project. As you can see there, the phase 6, 7, and 8 include residential towers, hotels, and so on and so forth. Next slide, please. That's it, and as Farooq said, he will be happy to answer inquiries on the projects which he mentioned in his patch, and I will be more than happy to answer any inquiries from any UK company who would like to be involved in these projects and to participate and pre-qualify or express interest and be part and parcel of these projects. Thank you. I'll now pass on to my colleague, Yamish.
Morning, everyone. This is Yamish. I'm the country lead for the creative sector. So following on with the projects, I would like to present two. The first one is Amaala. It sits along with NEOM and Red Sea. In between those, it's a 3,800 square kilometer giga project that will serve as an uber luxury wellness tourism destination focusing on wellness and health. It is targeted to ultra high net individuals and is being dubbed as the Riviera of the Middle East. Amaala, when complete, will have like about 2,500 hotel keys, 700 residential villas, and over 200 high-end retail establishments. It's focused on ultra high net individuals. The start date is expected to be Q1 2020. The projected completion date is about 28. Phase 1 is expected to finish about 23. Next slide, please. The next project I would like to talk about is the Diriyah Gate Development Authority. That's the development authority behind Diriyah, which sits in the city of Riyadh. It's more of a historic development. It's 7.1 million square meter mega project. It's an extension of the historic Diriyah district, which used to be the original home of the Saudi royal family and the country's first UNESCO heritage site. The restoration of the current historic district is almost complete. There are great projects setting up the world's largest Islamic museum, the restoration of historic Wadi Hanifa, and planting over 1 million indigenous Diriyah date trees. And it will transform the extension called Wadi Safar into residential and hospitality district. The development has a 27-hole golf course by Great Government and a number of unique resorts. Diriyah is also host to a number of events which you might have seen in the news. So it's where the Formula E race happens annually and will be the location for the historic fight between Joshua and Ruiz taking place in December. The extension to the project is expected to start in Q1 2020 and is expected to complete in 26. Thank you.
Thank you, Yamish.
Over to you.
Now I invite our special guest on the webinar, Rick Hopper from Aecom. Rick, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Farooq. And thank you to DIT and AEI for inviting me here today to present. I'll try and keep my presentation somewhat short, but I want to cover some of what we're doing here and you know, share some of the successes we've had. But first of all, I'll start with the front slide. Thanks to my iPhone as well, I'm able to take some decent photographs. Now, the resolution of this photograph maybe doesn't look as good as I intended it to, but this was on a site visit, which I'll touch on a little bit later in my presentation. But what I would say is some of the pictures, the stock pictures that you see of projects in Saudi Arabia, don't do them justice. You really need to get out there and see them. So I'll highlight a bit more about that. But as I said, my presentation isn't going to be very long, so I'm happy to field questions at the end. So feel free to put those through. So, very short agenda. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me, a little bit about Aecom, and then I'll talk about some of our projects here in Saudi Arabia. So me, okay, so Rick Hopper, and I've been with Aecom just for 10 months, but I've been in the region for about 12 years. My background is architecture, but I've worked in the built environment for those full 23 years. I've been in Saudi Arabia now for 3 years. It's been an amazing time to be out here. I came out in 2016 when the market was really still recovering from the oil price crash in 2015, and to be here when the projects really started to pick up and the visioning started, which I'll highlight a bit more about. But what I want to say is Saudi isn't all about work, so I've had to throw in a picture of me out on my dirt bike having fun. So although we come out here for the exciting projects and the opportunities, I think as an expatriate, I like to take advantage of the other opportunities which are outside of work. So enjoying my time out here and doing childhood things like still riding my dirt bike is fantastic. Yeah, a little bit more about my background and what I do with Aecom. Aecom is, my role with Aecom is I'm building places director. What that means to Aecom is basically anything design planning and economic studies, master plan and urban planning, these type of things. Also building design, multidiscipline building design, and also cost consultancy sits with my end market. So I oversee all that for Saudi Arabia. So it's been a busy time. So enough about me. I'll tell you a little bit about Aecom. So if we just move on to the next slide. So again, I won't read this out, but Aecom, like most companies, has strong core values, and it's something that I've recognized in my short time with Aecom. It seems to resonate in everything we do, especially around the safeguard and safety aspects and health and safety of what we do. Now, I should have started with a safety moment, but as it's not my meeting, I didn't jump in and do that. But if you were in one of my meetings, you'd have a safety moment. I'll move on to the next slide. So Aecom, quickly, is a global business. We're in 150 countries. We have over 87,000 staff. As some of you on the call the webinar will know, there's been a recent announcement where Aecom has sold off some of its managed services business in the United States. So our numbers are going to drop slightly, but what it means is it empowers our design aspect of our business. It's about changing Aecom more back to its original focus, which is design and engineering. So I think it's a very positive thing. What won't change is our numbers in EMEA. The Europe, Middle East, and Africa. You'll see that we have significant numbers in Europe, especially in the UK. We also have strong numbers out in Africa and also in the Middle East. So just drilling into the Middle East, we have over 3,500 staff across the Middle East, with 900 of those staff currently in Saudi Arabia and growing. We have forecast to grow our Saudi business to about 1,300 staff by middle of next year, just off of currently contracted work. So So the work is out there. There's a lot of projects, and thankfully we've been very successful. And I'll just touch a little bit more, and then we'll move off of what Aecom is. But Aecom and Saudi Arabia are a joint venture with a Saudi entity called the Zenil Group out of Jeddah. It's a long-term partnership that has been very successful for both us and our partner. It dates back some 40 years, and it means we are well placed to do business here in Saudi with that joint venture. The majority of our staff here in Saudi Arabia are project-based, but we do have 3 offices in Saudi, between Riyadh being our headquarters, Jeddah, and Khobar. That's probably enough of that. I won't go through all the other numbers. There's lots of numbers on that slide. So moving on, if we jump on to, I just really want to take you through some of our projects. But before we move off this slide, again, my iPhone helped me out with this, but this was the site visit that I was talking about, and this picture is linked to the first picture that I showed on my first slide, which is this was actually a NEOM site visit. So you see the pictures of NEOM a lot, and I'll have one further on in my presentation where you see the ocean, but actually it's so much more than the ocean. This is an area called Wadi Tayyib Al-Izm, and I probably pronounced that wrong, my apologies, but it's a fantastic canyon up the northwest coast of NEOM, right on the Gulf of Aqaba. We got there at sunset as the sun was coming through the opening. If you went around that corner, you would actually see the Gulf of Aqaba and actually looking out towards the Sinai Peninsula. To put some scale around that photograph, just look to the back of it and you'll see a bus. And that's a full-scale tour bus. So it's an amazing place to see. We traveled over 1,000 kilometers just by road around the NEOM site, which took 2 days. And I have to say it was the best site visit of my career. I never in my life thought a site visit would take 2 days to get around. So being somebody from an architectural background, engineering background, site visits are normally something you can get done in the morning, not something that takes 2 days. So it was fantastic. And that initial, the photograph on my initial slide to show you the scale of this site was actually right up by the Jordanian border. And my iPhone again kept telling me that I was in Wadi Rum in Jordan, but actually I was on the Saudi side. So some amazing things to see. So that's NEOM. But now I want to talk a little bit about our projects. I'll start with some of our design projects. Now, Saudi Arabia, from my perspective, has been in a planning phase really since just prior to Vision 2030 being launched. What happened is some of these projects were announced, and there was some initial work done on those projects. Now, those projects, such as Project Pristine, which is now the Red Sea, Project Pulse, which is now NEOM, Project Edge, which is now Qiddiya, really came into inception kind of in late 2016, and then they started really coming to life after the announcements of Vision 2030 and the National Transformation Plan. And we've been thankfully involved in all those projects from the beginning. As you'll see from this slide, for those in the industry, you'll see that a lot of this is around planning. Planning, framework plans, master plans, urban plans, strategy studies, economic studies. And again, that's just following the pace of what the country was doing. So this list of projects includes some work that we did with the Saudi Rail Organization, which isn't something you typically associate with urban planning, but it was planning for lands around the rail networks within Saudi Arabia. We also have worked with people like the Riyadh Diplomatic Corridor to look at revisioning the diplomatic corridor and making that a more financially standalone development. We've also been involved with the Riyadh Equestrian City and the Riyadh Equestrian Center. Luckily, we're involved as well in the upcoming race, and you might have seen that in some of your social media. And there's going to be a big horse race, the Riyadh Cup, coming up. We've also been involved in doing the master planning with that. So you'll see a lot of planning projects. It's just a sample of the projects we're doing or have completed within the last year. but it gives a flavor of what we've been doing. But what's really come up in the last few months is what I want to touch on in the next couple slides, and then I'll be finishing up. You just advance to the next slide. So in my next couple slides, we still have a couple design projects, which are large-scale design projects, but actually it's talking about the PMO and PMC space. So as these projects move out of the planning phase, we've seen it. We're moving into the implementation stage, and that implementation stage requires large project management and construction management organizations to be brought on board to manage the implementation and construction of these projects. So that's a good sign. For us, that's a sign of positive movement towards the implementation of these projects, but positive movement in the economic feasibility and viability of some of these projects. So if I just highlight on these, I won't go back onto the design projects which is up there. You can read some of that yourself. But Saudi Customs is a project that we're delivering right now. It doesn't seem like a traditional client for a design company, but actually it's all about replanning and revisioning what is a land border for Saudi Arabia. So we're looking at all of the land borders that Saudi Arabia has with its adjacent countries, how that land can be best used, how do they become more efficient in their processing of trucks and goods through these areas, but also how do they make them financially more viable and self-sustaining. So that's been a fantastic project for us. We've been on it for over a year, continues to grow. To show you the pace of some of these, we were only appointed a year ago, but some of the new land borders, 2 have already been fully built and commissioned and are up and running now. So it's a very fast-paced program, but exciting. We can just go on to my last slide, which is again highlighting more of the PMOs and PMCs. The GIT colleagues on the call, they talked about NEOM, and they're exactly correct in that NEOM master plan has been approved. This regional strategy is approved. The Silver Beach plan is approved, and that project is now starting to move forward, and we've been appointed, luckily, as a PMC, which has been a fantastic appointment for us. So we have around 50 staff based out on the NEOM site, and a host more based here at their headquarters in Riyadh. It's a fantastic project with a lot of opportunity. There's a whole host of assets, as you can imagine, a project of this scale will require. So what I would say to those on the call is just keep an eye out for RFPs to come out of that project. I think you'll find that it'll touch on every sector. And the last one that I'll highlight on is Al-Ula. Now, Al-Ula for me is a fantastic opportunity for Saudi Arabia. It's a built-in asset for the country. It's a heritage development just south of Medina Salah that has some amazing vistas, but also some amazing heritage, not just recent history, but also dating back thousands of years. You'll hear in the news and see in social media, there's a large festival, the Tantora Festival, that is coming up in December. And thankfully, as Aecom, we're actually delivering a lot of what is required for the infrastructure to be built to host that festival. So what I would like to kind of finish up on is, I really believe, and we believe as a company that KSA is moving towards the implementation stage of many of these projects. I think the appointments of the PMOs and PMCs demonstrates that and shows a strong commitment by the Saudi government to push these projects forward. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rick. It was really very useful presentation. Now I invite Yazan Shoker, the senior consultant from the AEI, to provide some information on AEI's support to UK companies in country and doing business in Saudi Arabia. Yazan, over to you.
Thank you, Farooq. I'll take this chance just to give a quick introduction and an overview of AI Saudi, who some of you may have heard of. Just to start, we are the exclusive delivery partner for the Department for International Trade here in Saudi Arabia, and we offer a range of services, including market entry, consultancy, and life support services that allow businesses to enter, operate, or deliver business in the kingdom. You'll see on the screen there an overview of our services, a range of services that we do offer, including support services such as accommodation, transport services, and visas, issuing letters of invitation for business visit visas for those wishing to come to the kingdom and either explore the market or meet with potential partners or attend exhibitions in the market. Moving on, we thought we would give our generic sort of advice to everyone that's looking at the Saudi market, and to say that Saudi Arabia is indeed a difficult market. But to succeed in Saudi Arabia, we learned through being here that there are 5 keys really to winning business, and that starts with planning, patience, presence, finding the right partner, and payment, of course. Doing business in Saudi is unlike doing business in many other countries, even in the region, and it does take patience, it does take persistence, it does take presence. It's important for you to be here. Business relationships rely a lot on face-to-face interactions, and of course, finding the right partner is crucial, and in the end, getting paid. If you have any questions regarding the Saudi market, or if there is anything that we can assist you with during your visit or support you with in regards to entering the market, then please feel free to drop us an email or get in touch. And thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Yazza. Thank you to Rick, Yazza, and Omar and Yamish for very useful presentation. Before we move on to our Q&A sessions, I would like to inform that DIT KSA is planning to organize infrastructure trade mission to Riyadh and Jeddah beginning of next year. Once the dates are finalized, we will publicize this mission widely. We are now going to begin answering the questions submitted during today's presentation. As a reminder, you can still submit questions through the questions pane in your attendee control panel. Moving on, I'm seeing a lot of questions on the screen, like people are mentioning whether we will get these slides. Just to inform everyone that after this webinar, you people will get the link which will provide you access to the recording of today's webinar. So moving on, for the benefit of all the participants, I will take the lead and ask question to Rick. We see that there are many large opportunities with large companies such as Aecom are pursuing in the market. Are there opportunities for SMEs to engage with companies such as Aecom?
Yeah, thanks, Farooq. Great question. So actually, as Aecom, we are a large organization, as I kind of highlighted. And when we go see clients, the clients don't want to hear us saying that we can do everything all the time. They actually want us to be teaming up with people who can do certain aspects better. And we've taken those comments on board, and that's what we're doing. And so definitely, so as an example, we've teamed recently with a smaller architectural firm out of the UK, and we've won a schools program here in Saudi Arabia, and we won that based off of their expertise, our local presence, and the partnership. It wasn't out of us being a large global engineering firm. It was really about that teaming. So there are a lot of opportunities for smaller businesses to team up with businesses like ours, especially in this sector. Anybody with an expertise in a certain field. What I would say is reach out to the bigger organizations like ourselves we have plenty of work on and a lot of opportunities, and I'd be happy to discuss with anybody on the call or anybody that's interested to know more about what we're doing and where there's opportunities for teaming and partnering with us.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you so much. I'm also noticing on the screen that there are a lot of questions being asked regarding the UK export finance support to the UK companies in the region. So I will invite my colleague Darren Johnson from Dubai. Darren, would you like to provide some information on UKEF?
Certainly, happy to do that. UK Export Finance is essentially an export credit agency and a government department that works alongside the Department for International Trade. They're based in Her Majesty's Treasury in London, their headquarters, but we also have representatives of UK Export Finance based in Dubai that cover the region, and that's my colleague David Moleshead. So I'm sure on the presentation you'll see an email and link to him. But to explain what it is, in essence, what the British government and the UK Export Finance is keen to do is to facilitate and support British companies to export overseas. So the way we do this is we are able to basically work with international banks who can effectively provide loans on various projects, and we provide a sovereign guarantee. Now, we can basically fund, through the support of the banks, 85% of a contract value. And what that means is that the end buyer of the project needs to put up 15% of the money. But in essence, we can work with 40 different currencies, and we are able to work with government entities and also the private sector. Now, with government entities, sometimes a sovereign guarantee is required, and also with the private sector companies, we normally need 2 years consolidated accounts for review. But the beauty of this is that the end buyer of this project effectively doesn't have to pay back the loan until the project has been handed over. Now, also the beauty of this is that this encourages the development of British consortiums. And the idea being that the consortiums will be able to have peace of mind that their payment milestones, so their payments are basically linked to the various milestones of the project. So that gives them peace of mind to pursue and continue with the project. I think the other thing to mention is that these consortiums can be a mixture. What I mean by that is there is an opportunity for British companies effectively to partner with local and also international companies as part of the consortium. The main proviso that we require is the overall project needs to have a minimum of 20% UK content. But how the consortium reaches that content, we're not prescriptive about. So in other words, a consortium could consist, for example, of a British design team, a British contractor, or a local or international contractor, and then the other parts of the content, the British content, could be achieved through the supply chain. We'd be delighted to discuss with British companies about various projects and how UKEF can support them. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Darren. Very useful. I have picked up another very interesting question. At what stage or milestones these projects, the Giga projects and the mega projects, are now, and how we contact them in order to sell our products and services? I would like to invite my colleague Umar Saeed to answer this question.
Thank you very much, Farooq. Very good question, obviously. The Giga projects were announced at different times in the last 2 or 3 years and are at different portions of their development. So every project, I mean, some of the projects, for example, Amaala will be starting next year, and other projects have already started. So depending on which project the inquirer is asking, we will be more than happy to help, put them in touch with the appropriate people, and appropriate context for that company to sell their products and services. Thanks, Farooq.
Yeah, thank you so much, Umar. Thank you. Another question related, there is mentioning of who or what is the Big Five. Big Five is an exhibition at the in Dubai next month, where means like it is around the construction and the infrastructure sector, where means like UK companies are also exhibiting, and the DIT is organizing the Meet the Buyer event for the UK companies with the regional colleagues, those who are visiting this show, including me. I will also be there at the Big Five. If one from you are attending, so I'll be more than happy to meet you there and discuss the projects in details, face to face. Another interesting.
Can I add, the event is the 26th of November, just in case nobody saw the slide.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Darren. On the cultural side, means there is an interesting question raised. What are the situations for women travel? How safe is it? And is the business culture open to dealing with the females? I will invite our colleagues from the AEI to answer this question.
Thank you, Farooq. I think in terms of is it safe for women to travel? Yes, indeed. And in fact, many of you have heard that over the recent years, there's been many restrictions that have been lifted, such as the dress code for women in the kingdom that has been changed recently, and of course allowing women to drive. We're seeing a lot of push for women to be in the workforce, so we're seeing a lot of females joining the workforce, a lot of females in high positions, senior positions within public and private institutions. So to answer your question simply, yes, the culture is opening up to dealing with females indeed.
Yeah. Other question regarding Rick Hopper. Will you be issuing contact details for Rick Hopper, please? Yes, we will share his email address with you. No issues. Moving on. This is something very interesting and might be interesting to the most of the companies. What is the current payment situation in Saudi Arabia? Again, I will invite my colleague Umar Saeed to answer this question.
Thanks very much, Farooq. Again, a good question, obviously, because UK companies would like to be paid eventually for whatever they do in these giga projects and mega projects. I think historically there has been some delayed payments on a number of projects, but I must say that has greatly improved. We used to see payment delays of more than 180 days, but it's now between 90 and 120 days. So it has improved because the economy of the country has improved. Just to mention that this year the country is going towards a 1.7% rate of GDP growth every year, and 2020 is expected to be a better year with a 2.2% GDP growth over the preceding year. Thank you, Farooq.
Okay, thank you, Umar. I will also invite Vic to just follow on my colleague Umar to share their practical experience.
Happy to give our experience. I think what's been a real positive step is the Etimad system and access to that site, and basically it's a site that's set up by the Saudi government to allow you to see both projects coming out, RFPs, but also to see where budgets are approved, where payments are in the payment cycle, where invoices are approved. And what it means for us is just visibility, instead of what tends to occur not just in Saudi Arabia but other countries. When a payment goes into a payment cycle, it then kind of disappears, or you lose sight of that, and you do a lot of calling around and following around at different offices. Now having that online really brings some confidence that payments are being processed and that you will be receiving your payments in a timely manner. So I think that's been a really positive step for us, or for the country, but definitely as businesses doing business here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Rick. There is another question, probably my colleague Umar Said, who is expertise in this field, can answer. With all of these very exciting projects, there will be the need to handle the residual daily generated waste. Are there any initiatives allowing for the recycling of waste? Umar?
Yeah, thanks, Farooq. Obviously, all these projects will take these smart city initiatives, and that's what PIF has told them to. And one of the elements of a smart city is to have advanced technological systems to handle the waste and recycle the waste. Yes, all these projects have a system in place, and some of the projects, like for example, NEOM, are slightly advanced, and they have sent out expressions of interest, and RFPs went out very recently. Other projects have still not gone as far as that stage, but yes, I confirm that all will have an advanced system of collecting and recycling waste, and I'll be more than happy if the UK company who asked that question can get in touch with me and we can discuss further. Thanks, Farooq.
Thank you. Thank you, Umar. I'm having some little problem in reading, so.
Okay, the next question here is from Eco Process Engineering Limited. How do we access infrastructure portions of the projects, particularly environmentally friendly wastewater treatment and rainwater harvesting opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take that.
Yeah.
So what I would say around that is it is a massive challenge for all of these projects. You know, you're in environmentally sensitive sites, especially the ones on the coastlines, but also in the interior of the country. Right now, I would say traditional methods are being used around wastewater treatment and sludge harvesting and the like. I would say they're definitely open to hearing what else can be done. Speaking of a project here in Riyadh, there's a very environmentally sensitive site that runs through the center of Riyadh, which is Wadi Hanifa, and you have a lot of wastewater treatment facilities, existing wastewater treatment facilities that discharge into that wadi. And I know for sure that the Riyadh government, the Riyadh Development Authority, and others would be now the Royal, or what are they, the Riyadh Commission, Royal Commission for Riyadh. Yeah, they just changed names. They would be very happy to hear from companies such as yours to learn how best to treat that water or take it to the next kind of level of treatment. So what I would say is, you can directly talk to the development authorities themselves. As I said in my presentation, they're all very approachable in the development authorities and the development companies. They are all happy to speak to new companies, especially with environment angles to their service. The other option is obviously to go to large firms like ourselves. Feel free to reach out to myself. My details will be passed out to the attendees, but that's another option as well.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ray. There is one very interesting question. It means I'm just summarizing few of the question together, and it is means like, do you foresee any delays in the execution of these projects? Rick,
I mean, we were discussing this earlier. It's a good question as well. I think with these projects, as I mentioned in my presentation, you know, we've been in a planning stage in a lot of these projects for the last year and a bit, and it does seem to be moving on for the majority of the programs. Some of the programs are having a relook, as any projects do. Sometimes they need to go back through a planning stage and maybe revisit certain portions of their overall program, and that's happening on some of the projects. So yes, I think some portions of the projects will stall slightly, but I think that's all part of the normal process of projects of this scale, and projects of this scale don't happen very often. So you know, when replanning comes along, I think that is a natural process. But there will be some slight delays because of that replanning process.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rick. There are other questions, a lot of around the Saudi economy. How stable is the Saudi economy? So I will invite first my colleague Umar to just answer this question, and then we will bring Rick as well to follow. Umar?
Yeah, thanks, Farooq. Yeah, in general, the Saudi economy over the last few years, because it's oil-based, an oil-based economy, has had its rough times. We've seen that from 2015, when the royal decree came out to stop all infrastructure projects temporarily, until things improved. We saw 2016 being much better than 15, and so on and so forth. So this year, so far, touch wood, it's been very good, and things have really picked up in all these giga projects and mega projects. So PIF is investing a lot of money. There's more, the government is spending, so there's more spending within the country, and we've seen a lot of positive vibes so far. So the economy is stable, and opportunities are, the fundamentals are very strong, and opportunities for next year and the year after look promising, according to a number of reports which we've read from the World Bank and other international bodies. Thanks, Farooq.
Can I add as well? I think what's also important is to mention about, again, UK export finance coverage. I mean, we have about $5 billion of coverage in Saudi Arabia, but obviously it's on a first come, first served basis. But I think it's very important that if companies have opportunities to reach out to us to see how we can support on this. I think it's also important to mention that, you know, most contract values need to be a minimum of £5 million or equivalent currency on these projects to utilize UKF.
Thank you, Darren. Now,
yeah, I mean, just from my own perspective, we see it as a very, stable place to do business. As I mentioned in my presentation in 2016, when I first arrived, the country was still recovering from that oil price reduction. I think some of the planning that's gone into the National Transformation Plan, also the relook at where budgets are allocated, and also the visibility of those budgets, as I mentioned on the Etemad system and others, I think is given some confidence to the market, and it feels very stable. It's definitely a place that we're happy to be doing business in.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. Thank you. We have one more minute to finish this webinar. So I would like to thank you everyone, Rick, Umar, and everyone who has participated and provided very useful information during the question and answer session. And thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. If you have any other questions or need any in-market support, then please feel free to contact DIT KSA team. Once you leave today's webinar, you will receive a survey on the presentation, and we would appreciate if you would complete that and provide your feedback. You will also receive a follow-up email within 24 to 48 hours with a link to view a recording of today's webinar. On behalf of DIT and our presenters, thank you for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.